nice life, Stella.
Thank you.
One family at a time. That is how Lucky Dog Animal Rescue is saving the lives of homeless animals. This is the happy ending, but it's a long road to get these animals to this point. Started in 2009, Lucky Dog is an all-volunteer, non-profit rescue organization based in the Washington, D.C. metro area.
You're such a good girl. This one still needs a home.
While there are no exact numbers, the American Humane Association estimates there are 3,500 animal shelters currently in the United States. Millions of dogs find their way into these shelters every year. Many are strays. Many others are dogs turned in by their owners, who for one reason or another can no longer care for the animal. Animals rescued by Lucky Dog come from a variety of shelters, but a majority are from high-kill shelters in rural North and South Carolina.
I think what's different about Lucky Dog is that our dogs come from shelters where their local adoption rate is almost zero. So without our help, their euthanasia rate would be over 80% easily at most of those shelters. One in particular we work with, we're the only rescue that pulls dogs out of, so without us they would have 100% euthanasia rate. I think that from that standpoint we're really filling a critical need. We try to find shelters that don't have the help and that have really adoptable dogs that we know we can place really quickly up here in DC. And that's kind of our goal.
Many animals in shelters are euthanized simply because the shelter lacks the room and resources to care for them. For these dogs, time is not on their side.
A lot of the shelters that we take them from are in rural areas, and they don't have the resources to care for the dogs, they don't have the resources to hold on to the dogs, and so the dogs last about a week in the shelter before they're put down.
How do so many animals end up in shelters? There are a variety of reasons. Many are lost dogs that show up at shelters with no identification tag. Others are strays. And then there are the dogs surrendered by their owners. Every couple of weeks, Lucky Dog receives a transport of dozens of dogs. Volunteers drive the dogs from South Carolina to meet up with their fosters and new adoptive owners in Washington, D.C. This young organization operates like a well-oiled machine. It's all thanks to the hundreds of Lucky Dog volunteers. There are event organizers, fosters, administrative volunteers, and volunteers who screen potential adopters.
Tanner's foster?
At this transport in July 2010, Lucky Dog took in more than 60 dogs, including more than a dozen puppies.
A lot of the dogs that we pick up are puppies and dogs that are, labs and dogs that are great family dogs. And there's no reason other than misfortune for their former family or misfortune for the dog that they even were in the shelter.
From dog to dog, you're going to need to work with different situations. For instance, if you have a really shy dog, being with a foster is critical to the dog being able to find a home. A lot of the core volunteers of Lucky Dog are trained in how to work with dogs like that.
Taking care of these dogs and finding them good homes would not be possible without Lucky Dog's dedicated team of volunteers.
We don't have any paid staff anywhere, so everyone within the organization, including our director, all of our coordinators, the adoption coordinators, the foster coordinators, myself, everyone is unpaid. So essentially volunteers are really important because without volunteers we wouldn't have an organization.
The first thing is we're able to bring in dogs depending on the number of foster homes we have available. So that's a huge thing. And the second thing is our adoption coordinators, because they're the people that take the time to screen each applicant.
Lucky Dog also takes in animals from Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C.
We try to find shelters that don't have the help and that have really adoptable dogs that we know we can place really quickly up here in D.C. And that's kind of our goal.
Once Lucky Dogs arrive in Washington, D.C., they are matched up with a foster. In order to keep growing and to increase the number of dogs the organization saves, Lucky Dog is always looking for new foster homes.
Well, fosters more or less are the heart and soul of Lucky Dog because they're the ones who take the dogs in, train them, work with them, and basically just give them love.
This is my first foster, actually. and I guess I decided to foster because I would like to adopt, but my life's not really solid enough right now, so I figured this was the next best thing.
The one thing I have learned is that all the dogs can make it through. They can be trained, they can be worked with.
Being a foster is a great experience. You get to feel the love of the animal and the appreciation that they have for you for helping rescue their life. A lot of times you feel like they know that they were being saved.
Once Lucky Dog takes in an animal and assures they are healthy and placed in a foster home, the next step is finding them a forever home. This is where Lucky Dog's dedicated team of adoption coordinators takes over.
Every coordinator is responsible for a certain number of dogs, and they're responsible for posting the dogs online, advertising the dogs, talking the dogs up so the dogs can get adopted.
It takes dozens of volunteers to hold some of Lucky Dog's biggest adoption events. These events showcase dozens of adoptable dogs, and they can draw quite a crowd. During adoption events, Lucky Dog tries to give each dog one-on-one attention. Handlers are paired up with a dog and are available to answer questions from potential adopters. As of September 2010, in little over a year since it started, Lucky Dog has found homes for nearly 2,000 dogs.
When you see a dog leave with a new family, it's really the best part of Lucky Dog.
It's just a really good feeling because they finally get to be in a home. Like, he's lived in a shelter his whole life, so he finally gets to see grass and experience that.
Lucky Dog is in constant need of new volunteers. This young organization continues to grow, and that has many volunteers looking to the future.
I would love to see us grow enough to save more dogs.
The only other option kind of in terms of future that we might be doing, which, it's kind of a pipe dream at this point, but it would be to have a facility up here, whether it be like a doggy daycare or a boarding kennel or something like that, so that it would enable us to bring more dogs in from shelters that don't have what we have in South Carolina.
I think the next biggest challenge for Lucky Dog is really educating the community about, spay and neuter, about shelter dogs, and showing them that, shelter dogs can be just as good as any purebred dog.
We have volunteers that, give a couple hours a week to do a home visit or come to handle a dog at an adoption event. We have volunteers that give 40 hours a week that, coordinate where the dogs are going at any given time, who's in what foster home, who's going to go to boarding. And then we have a number of volunteers who take all of our applications, they do thorough interviews, they call vets to make sure current and past pets are up to date on shots, they schedule the home visits, they walk people through the fostering process or the adoptive process. They work the table at the adoption events. I mean, there's so many different things that have to be done on the DC end of things that, it just couldn't. I'm just humbled by the number of people that have joined this organization and have made it possible to save all those dogs.
To find out how you can help Lucky Dog Animal Rescue, visit luckydoganimalrescue.org or email info@luckydoganimalrescue.org.